Thank you for joining. How are you? So the tea that we'll be tasting today is the Huang Ya, which is a yellow tea, Huangya. That's the name of the tea, so you can find that packet, which looks like this. All right. And you can cut it open and put it on a piece of paper. Just half the letter size paper is good, or smaller. We're just gonna use the paper to kind of look at the tea and then put the tea, slide the tea into the pitcher. So you can take a look at the tea. I do want to point out that this is a completely handmade tea. I mean, most of pretty much all of Tea Drunk's green tea is handcrafted, but I want to use this as an opportunity to show you what a handcrafted string-shaped green tea looks like, because this is a very common shape. You basically have mouthfeel of this shape, but most of the common green yellow teas you see in the market is this particular shape. So it's more representative. It's not overly straight. So if you see a tea that's overly straight, that means it has been bumped by machine, so it's not handcrafted. But you know it's been straightened because for tea, if you did not straighten the tea, then it actually has, it's gonna be, you'd be able to see the separation of the bud and the leaves, and they will curl each of their own way. So actually become more like almost like a circular kind of piece instead of like this, where it's the bud and the leaves are kind of hugged together to be more of a string shape. So with a handmade tea, it is, we make effort to straighten the tea, but at the same time, it can never be as straightened as a machine can do. All right, so make sure you have the teaware ready, which are 2 of the fairness pitchers, the strainer, and make sure your water is boiling. Right? So green and yellow tea both are low in oxidation. The tea leaves are pretty tender. Oh, since I remember now, I want to remind you again to make sure after today's session, take a piece of the brewed tea leaf and taste it, chew on it, get a feeling of the texture, the tenderness of the tea, so you get an idea of why we brew certain tea a certain way. You want to fill the water to the neck, yeah. And I hope yesterday you got an opportunity to taste the guapi and the green tea spent leaves. If you did not, definitely taste today's yellow tea. It'll be similar effect. And just keep reminding yourself to always do that for the next 6 sessions as well. Yeah. Okay. So once again, to facilitate the faster cooling of the tea, I'm going to go back and forth to cool the water. So with this Huang Ya for today's weather, I'm aiming for about 90 degrees Celsius. So a little bit hotter than the guapian. So this is a tea. So yellow tea, long story short, is very similar to green tea, but in comparison, it's a little rounder, a little smoother. Where green tea is a not fermented and not oxidized tea. Yellow tea is what we call a micro-fermented tea. And I'll explain that in a little more when I explain the processing of this tea. So now this is my hotter vessel. I'm going to fold this up, right? Quickly put the water, transfer the water from my hotter vessel one last time into the empty one. And then just slide the tea into here. Give it a little tap. All right, cool. Can everybody smell their tea now? So when the tea is not flavored, the first brew, before you heat the the tea, the smell is supposed to be very neutral. So now, after we have heated the tea, you're supposed to enjoy the aroma a little bit more. And it's very nutty, it's very savory. So it's comparing to yesterday's Hua, which is a green tea, you immediately notice how much more savory this tea is. Okay. So now I'm going to pour the water around the rim, so never at the center of the tea. If you wonder why with the first brew we do not do this pour it onto the wall and make the tea swirl thing, it's basically because with this particular shape of the vessel and with how lightweight the tea is when it's dry, you're not able to do it. It's not very feasible. So that's why we only do that in the second brew. But if you have a straight wall vessel, or if you have a larger vessel where you can allow more time for the tea to absorb the water and then take on that strength, that force to flip, then you are able to do that as well. Give me 1 second. All right. So now we're going to let this tea brew. I already mentioned a little bit that a yellow tea is similar to green tea, but it's a little bit different. So when we make green tea, the most important step is what we call the characteristic defining step. It's the step that you apply high temperature to the tea leaves to destroy all the enzymes in tea. For yellow tea, you also do that, but you do something more after the tea's enzyme had been killed. So the beginning is very similar. You pick the tea, and the standard picking grade for Huang Ya is a bud and 1 to 2 leaves. And you pick the tea, and then you let the tea rest. You kill the grain, so you kill the enzymes. And then we also bake the tea, but you only bake the tea to about 70 to 80% dryness. Depends on the strategy the tea maker has. So you do not want the tea to be completely dried. And after that, what we do is we put the tea and keep it in a oxygen deprived environment. So back in the days, before you have vacuum and everything, how do you ensure the tea is in a more or less oxygen deprived environment? Well, people can use wax paper. People would pile the tea up for a little depth and then put the damp clothes over the top. Nowadays, people would actually even use plastic bags. So it's not a perfect environment, but so maybe this is the imperfection that makes the tea what it is. So there depends on the different style of yellow tea. There are different methods that you can adopt that can make the tea more yellow or less yellow. This is called the yellowing process. So the yellowing steps for Huang Ya is we do put the tea in a bamboo tea tray, and so give it about like this much of the depth, and then we put a wet towel. We want to make sure the water is completely get rid of, so it's not dripping any water, and then we lay it on top of the tea to keep it away from the oxygen. All right, so now let's take a look at the level of where the tea is in terms of the whole vessel, and then also the dryness and the tenderness of the tea. This is when the first brew is ready. Okay. You want to pour it onto the rim of the strainer instead of directly towards the center. Make sure you leave some water with the tea. We always want to leave some water with with some water with the tea for a green yellow tea. Yeah, so about this much is good. You just want enough to soak the tea. We return the rest of the leaves back to the vessel. I'm going to grab a cup. You want to pour the cup to just about 70% full. It smells so good, by the way. And now you can slurp So immediately what you notice is, sometimes people laugh at me when I do this, but green tea, the texture of the tea in their mouth feels like this. But yellow tea feels like this. It comes inward. It envelops. It's almost like the texture of the tea has a very thin membrane around it. Everything is contained into that. And then all the elements of the tea that has to offer to you, the compound seems to travel within, like as a group and within this perimeter. So that's what I mean when the tea is a little bit rounder. It also feels a little bit less tannic than the green tea as well. And the classic tasting note for yellow tea is corn silk, right? So it has a little bit of like a grain note, corn note to it as well. And this, a good yellow tea should also have notes of like flowers, and so it's a little bit floral. It's definitely umami. Umaminess is a standard note for all high quality green yellow tea. So green yellow tea umaminess is definitely what we're looking for. And then it has a little bit of a sugary undertone as well. And as the brew goes on, and the mouthfeel opens up, we're gonna feel more and more of a transformed tasting notes from this tea as well. So I was talking about the processing of yellow tea. And the signature step for making a yellow tea is the yellowing step. So we're talking about how you put the tea in an oxygen-deprived environment. And you want to do this, depends on the style of tea you're doing. You can do this, if the tea is more or less on the drier side, you want to do this for about 48 hours. If the tea is a little bit more on the wetter side, where you do not want the tea to over ferment, you can do this within for about 24 hours. But the tea will, even when the tea feels it's dry, but it's not dry completely. So at 70% dry, the tea actually feels a little bit dry to the touch, but it's not completely dry. When you take the tea out, it should be wetter than when you put the tea in. And then we take this tea out, and it already will start having a little bit like an East tea kind of smell to it, and the tea will have yellowed for just a little bit. And then we bake the tea again. When you bake the tea, you only want to make it a little bit more drier than what it was before. So for example, if the tea was about 70% dry, and now maybe you bring it up to 80% dry, and then you repeat this yellowing process again. Depends on the strategy of the tea maker and the style of yellow tea you make. This process can be repeated 3 to 5 times, and sometimes even 7 times. Really depends on the needs. And during this yellowing process, the leaves will become yellow, but not due to oxidation. This is actually called a non-oxidative yellowing process. So this is what the process that gives the yellow tea the signature tasting notes, which are those kind of floral, but more like a corn kind of note, a grain note. Sometimes if you overdo it, the teas can start to have some almost like a fermented apple or over-ripened apple note to it, which is not what we wanted. And of course, a lot of the Huang Ya or yellow tea nowadays in the market are just straight out not a yellow tea. It's basically a green tea. So the whole yellowing process was actually skipped. And after the tea is completely dried, because this tea also comes from the Luan region, it does get finished with the big fire, so pulling the big fire. So what we do next is to let the tea wait for, once again, 3 to 4 days or a week. But the pulling the big fire tray for yellow tea is very small. It's a very small tray, and then so only one person needs to do this. It's actually a little bit more awkward for the person. The person basically needs to kind of adopt almost like a squatting motion to support the tray, and instead of flipping the tea with hand, they will actually flip the whole tray. So it's very much like somebody flipping the wok to make things turn. So it's kind of similar to that. And as with 瓜片 pulling the big fire is a very, very risky step because you're dealing with already dry tea, and this stage it's very easy to burn the tea, which can forgo all the efforts that you have put in before. So sometimes this step is also skipped for mediocre tea. So I would say the finding steps is what separates mediocre tea with really, really awesome tea. So if you play it safe in tea making, what you can get is a tea without much flaw, but also not without not a lot of high points either. But if you take that risk, especially with putting the big fire, it really helps to enhance the aroma and solidify all the notes in the tea. And it also have this ability to basically repel any impurities in the tea, so the taste is that much cleaner. Right? So now what you want to do is you can either drink the yellow tea, or you can dump it. Or you can put it in a different vessel to save it for drinking later. Now we're ready to move on to the second brew. But definitely keep a mental note of what the first brew tastes like, because remember, for the taste hierarchy, you want to be able to, within a second, to quickly analyze what is the aroma, what is the taste, what is the body, the texture elements, and then the aftertaste. So because of that, brewing tea, when we're drinking tea with these kind of high frequency of brewing, it actually helps us to understand the concept. Because in the normal days, after I brew the first brew, I would just sit down and then enjoy my tea, take some time to do that. But now I'm actually going to do multiple brews very fast, and it actually helps to enforce the tasting idea as well. So the first brew of the tea is mostly the aroma of the tea, but now with the second brew, the taste is going to become more substantial. You realize there's more complexity in the taste, and there's also more depth in the taste. So just by comparing the first and the second brew, it's almost like a practice or exercise to help to train your palate to know what is the difference between aroma and taste. Right? I'm bringing this up to the screen, but you don't have to hold it like this. So we're aiming for a wall farther and make the tea swirl. All right. So you also want to stop just at the neck. Now take a mental note of the position of the tea leaves. But for this brew, we're actually not going to let the tea steep for long, and we're going to give this brew, we're going to go around the rim the strainer for this brew, and make sure you always leave water. All right, don't forget to leave water. It's to prevent the tea from oxidizing. Right? All right, so now let's have a sip of this yellow tea, the second brew. So immediately you probably notice a increased level of tannins, right? So the tightening sensation on your mouth is a little bit stronger. But it's a good thing. Remember, we're looking for complexity and balance. You do not want something that's so singular in its notes that it's not sophisticated, right? So, because like we all love drinking orange juice, it's pleasant, but it's not sophisticated. So tea is basically a bitter green drink, but you're digging it because it has this complexity. But you do not want the complexity to be all over the place and then present it to you in an unorderly way. So complexity, but it has to be balanced. So tannins is good. Abundance tannins is also good. Is it rough? Is it fine? Right? Is it coarse? Is it elegant? So these are kind of the things that we're looking for. So now the mouth will definitely open up. So we have more taste. It's not just like aroma that's like airy and over here, right? It's not just tender. The first brew might be more pleasant to the palate, but the second brew is more desirable. All right. Let's have another sip. And you'll also notice that the second brew, the after aftertaste is also a little bit stronger as well, especially if you push the tea towards the back of your tongue. It actually stimulates there, and it makes you salivate. All right. So for all teas, there's three key factors that impact the tea's quality is location, varietal, and processing. So we're already gone through the processing. Now I want to talk a little bit about the location. Lori earlier today, or maybe yesterday, posted a video on Instagram about the divine tea garden for this particular yellow tea, Huang Ya. So Huang Ya is also a tea that's produced in this awesome tea region called Lu'an. It comes from a county in Lu'an called Huoshan. So the designation for the tea to bear Huoshan Huang Ya is basically means the tea needs to come from within the county of Huoshan. And in China, county is a smaller jurisdiction than the city, all right? And then within Huoshan, there are many different villages and townships. There is a township called Dahuaping that's considered one of the best townships for yellow tea. And then within Dahuaping, there is a particular village, it's a jurisdiction village called Jingjishan, the Golden Rooster Mountain. So Golden Rooster Mountain is basically, you can consider that like your top ground terroir for the tea. But the Golden Rooster Mountain actually has multiple natural villages, and these natural villages are also ranked. The crown jewel is this one natural village called Shangzhipeng, and this is where the tea comes from. It's actually a very small village. There's less than a dozen households in the village, and there is a divine tea garden in the area, and that divine tea garden is in the caretaking of the Shangzhipeng Sun. Interesting enough, so this is the Golden Rooster Mountain. Shangzhipeng village is on one side of the mountain. It does not occupy the whole mountain top. Over on the other right over the top, there's actually a different village that does not even belong to the jurisdiction of the Golden Rooster Mountain. And their tea, immediately, the demand and the value and the price falls short. So this is a very interesting thing that you repeatedly see in some of the historic terroirs in China, is that the villages are connected, but they demand completely different prices just because maybe there is the lot of the tea may be facing different directions, or some small details about the terroir has changed that completely change the desirability of the tea. But it's all related to taste. After all, everything that we're geeky about, we're not geeky about it for no reason. We're geeky about it because it can all be reflected in the taste. Okay? And you can heat your water for just a little bit, but not for a lot. By the way, because while I'm doing this, I cannot really see all your comments and questions. So, but what we're going to do is I'm going to review them at the end. So at the end of the session, we're going to do a little bit of Q&A, and we can talk about all of them. And there's also a function where you can submit a question, where you can type a question. I'll take a look at those as well. So how does everyone like the second brew? All right, so water does not have to bring to boiling. Remember, we're looking for a combined temperature of the water that's left with the tea plus the water that you are adding into the pitcher. All right. There we go. So the tea swirls. You want to once again take a note of where the tea level is. Oh, actually, we'll just take a very quick moment to smell this pitcher, which smells amazing. And that's always a sign of really, really good tea. And that's one thing that I dig so much of high quality tea is the, I guess you can call it the after smell, but technically whatever lingers on the vessel is what lingers on your palate as well. And just so pleasant, and sometimes it can last for a really, really long time. And now let's talk a little bit about the cultivars that's being used for this particular kind of tea, which is the Huang Ya, the yellow tea. So now there's another added layer now to the overall tasting profile of this tea, right? That big sugary, like opened up note that we tasted yesterday in the guapian is also today actually present in the yellow tea. So it has like this buttery, more opened up note to it. I will also say right now this brew, the nuttiness of the tea has transformed from a more roasted nut to more of like a raw nut, almost like an unroasted cashew nut kind of note. All right, very sugary as well. As with all traditional tea region, the heirloom teas are still the most desired, and there's also the locations where you are most likely to find the heirloom tea trees. So whenever we can, we always want to do the heirloom tea trees because those are the teas that earned the region the fame in the first place, and therefore, if you're going after a tea because its endorsement from the past connoisseurs. If you're getting a varietal that's completely different from when those connoisseurs has endorsed the tea, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? So that's why heirloom varietal is also, just from a passion standpoint, is also what a tea connoisseur should really be going after as well. So this is an heirloom varietal, but the region has multiple early varietals as well. It's actually one of the few true origin top villages that they almost do not have any early varietals. So the Shangzhipeng village, they have very, very little of new varietal. It's almost all heirloom varietals. But for the rest of the jurisdiction village of Golden Rooster Mountain, they actually do have a few different kinds of the clone varietals. Unuzao is actually one of them as well. All right. Very nice. All right. So I'm actually not going to do the last brew because I want to, I think for those of us at home, right, you probably want to save it for a little bit later enjoyment after we have enjoyed the first 3 brews. But for the last brew, remember, we're just going to practice one more time to let the tea swirl, but also you can let the tea steep for just a couple minutes, and then you can drain the tea completely and make sure you smell the spent leaves, taste a little bit of spent leaves, and also always smell the fairness picture after tea has been brewed as well. So now let's go through some of the questions and stuff. So I'm gonna go around to take the phone out of the tripod and then bring it closer to my face so I can see the comments. All right, there we go. So is there a reason for leaving water in with the leaves? Yes, so green yellow tea have a lower oxidation level, so to leave the tea with the water is really to prevent the tea from oxidizing. So it's very similar to cutting the potatoes and letting the potatoes sit in water. The tea is a Huang Ya, so it's a yellow tea. Huangya. Oh, I did do it. Are you getting good flavor? All right. Okay, any more questions? 霍山黄芽. Yes, so Huoshan and Huang Ya. Yeah. Oh, thank you for the notes. We're just really helping each other out. Here, does the water left in the gunapin not get over steeped in? No, because the thing is, A little bit, but not no. So what it is this water will cool down really fast, and after it cools down, it actually will reach equilibrium, and it will not continue to steep the tea at a very fast pace. So and then also the benefit of leaving it in the water is much greater than having the tea oxidize, which completely change the taste of the tea. And also keep in mind, in China, it's very, very common for people to just drink the tea directly out of the vessel the tea is brewed in. So it's just in a single cup, and then you kind of use your teeth to filter the leaf so it doesn't get into your mouth, and you just sip on it. So that's very common as well. So there's no need to drink the tea completely before you refill. Oh, because it is heirloom varietal, so by definition, the tea's varietal, the cultivar is not, so it's not a single cultivar, it's a group of them. The Chinese academic term is actually called a group varieties or group cultivars. So it's not one of them, and they are the ones that indigenous to the region, and then people will plant them with the seed. So technically every single tea tree is different. This also shows that nature also prefers diversity, right? And this is what gives us the most complexity in the taste, and it gives the tea maker the greatest opportunity to give you a fuller representation of what the tea will taste like. So it has greater potential. It does not always automatically result in better tea. It just has greater potential, and if it's in the hands of a really awesome tea maker, they can make this really well. Oh, thank you. Is there a great price difference for yellow tea due to the extra? So price is always going with the location. So 90% of you pay for a tea, you pay for a location. So basically a difference between a $10 ounce tea versus a $100 ounce tea, that $90 goes to the location. So the extra processing definitely adds to the price of the tea, but it's already been predetermined by the location, because the location dictates the price of raw leaves, and that's the bulk part of the price of the tea. Will this get frothy like the guapian when shaken? A little bit, but not as much as guapian does. Yeah. Oh, did everyone try preserving the guapian, put it in a bottle and shake it? It got really creamy, right? And also in the summertime, we would do a nitro tea with guapian. It literally tastes like a matcha latte. It's amazing. So if you have the right equipment to do a nitrogen tea, you can cold brew the guapian and nitro that. It's amazing. How long can I take tea? Water. So that really depends. You know, one of the reasons that we do this is also because we cannot drink the tea fast enough, right? To just kind of continue to be drinking tea. So if you, so this method really allows us to step away from the tea and then come back and then refill the tea, and it helps to preserve the flavors of the tea. Awesome. Yeah, so yesterday's video is I think yesterday's video is still on our Instagram live. It's usually there for 24 hours, and because we upload it at the end of the session, so it should still be there for maybe the next hour or so. But it's also on Facebook. Facebook takes a long time to approve and then upload the long videos, but we already submitted it. So once that's done, and it'll be on Facebook permanently. Or as long as for a long time, I guess. I think it's just, what are your thoughts about giving plants tea water? So in rural China and also in the tea country, people actually do use tea leaves as fertilizers, and tea leaves are generally believed to be very good fertilizers. But in my own experience, I think if you do that, for your indoor plants, it might attract bugs and things like that. So you might want to consider that as well. I know for for rural China, because everything is just out there and it's in the mountain, in the nature, people would either cut the older leaves or take out the branches and just let it be, and then it'll eventually become fertilizers. Or they would use the spent leaves or the older leaves, and they'll actually mix it with other like nutshells and things like that, and they press it into like little cakes, and then they put it in the field, and especially right before the rain, it becomes a very good natural fertilizer as well. Of course. And let me see the questions in the type up section. Can you recommend nitro brewing equipment? I really don't think I'm in the position of recommending that. I don't even remember the brand, but for us, when we experimented, we bought a small dispenser from Amazon. So you can Google a nitrogen dispenser. You have to buy the capsules separately, but they have certain dispensers, and for different gas that you want to use, there are different pressure ratings. So make sure you get the right ones for safety measures. And then so it only do actually this much tea at a time, so it's not a lot of tea that you can do at a time. But during that time, we're just experimenting and wanted to try with some of our customers, and we didn't really sell it, so we didn't want to make a big thing out of it. Yeah. I would not recommend making iced tea with green or yellow tea. Cold brew would be much better. This is also because green and yellow tea have this this tendency to oxidize. Even the tea water that I have saved from earlier, you can if you want, you can save a little bit of your tea and then just give it a few hours, and you'll notice that this tea will have become yellower. So because of that, it's actually not good to pre-brew it and then serve it in the iced tea form. White tea, on the other hand, I would highly recommend. If you had to pick a tea to do iced tea, I would recommend that. But cold brew would be better. For cold brew, we just use room temperature water, and if I have the time, I would let the tea sit at room temperature for a couple hours and before I put it in the fridge. But sometimes if I had to step away, I do not want to leave the tea at room temperature for too long, I just put it in the fridge right away. Yes, I would say the yellow tea is definitely one of China's. I mean, it is, as a category, it is China's rarest tea. So so right now, both the demand and the knowledge and the production are mostly in China. I mean, and also like basically all teas, at one point came from China. So but I would say, for any tea is very interesting for everybody to explore. So definitely explore it, and it's just because remember, all of the teas that we're drinking come from this one plant. So exploring any tea really just helps to understand this plant better. So you know that, if we have altered this element or that element, this detail, that detail during the processing, this is how the tea reacts. And that's, after all, that's all the joy there is, right? So. Oh, thank you. Do you find that cold brewing tea brings out different notes? Yes, cold brew definitely bring out different notes in tea. I noticed that if we cold brew the yellow tea, it becomes much more floral. So the floral notes come out more in the cold brew. So cold brew is very similar to the first brew of the tea. It's always more pleasant. It brings out all the pleasant notes in the tea. So it's very enjoyable, of course, very refreshing as well. I will usually cold brew the tea and then actually let the tea warm up just a little bit before drinking it. It's almost similar to like how you want to treat with a white wine. Like, so not immediately super crispy cold after you do it. This helps to let the tea give a little bit more aroma as well. But cold brew, yes, usually has the problem of lack of depth. So I usually don't use very, very good tea for cold brew. You can also do that and it'll always taste better. But it's basically, you do not need to use very good tea for cold brew in order to bring out some of the pleasant notes.
The tea that surprised me the most for cold brew, I would say, would be mouthfeel, the green tea. Because mouthfeel is such a savory tea. This almost like tastes salty, right? The number one keynote for mouthfeel is how savory it is, and it's so floral when you cold brew it. It's just like completely different. We don't have a cold brew kit, mostly because you can just, put the tea. It'll be the same standard brewing size, and you can put it into the whole bottle. Right now, we use the cold brew bottle that Hario produced, the Japanese company that also produce a lot of the coffee brewing equipments. So I really like that one because it looks prettier than a lot of the other ones. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. Any more questions? All right. Okay, thank you very much for joining me again today. And tomorrow we'll be tasting a white tea. The white tea that in your kit is called Bai Mudan, Baimudan. It should be in like a silver bag. So just get that ready, and we're gonna be using Gaiwan instead of the two fairness pitchers. And we're gonna have a lot of fun again tomorrow. All right. Thank you.